You hear the stones first, not breaking, scraping, a sound like fingernails dragging across slate, over and over. In the lightless belly of a place no architect ever intended for prayer. Your breath catches in the dark as you realize what you're hearing: not construction, not repair, but desperation made audible. 23 women kneel in absolute blackness beneath the most magnificent palace in the world, carving crosses into bedrock with shards of broken pottery. Their hands bleed. Their lips move without sound. And somewhere above them, the empire that swallowed kingdoms whole sleeps, completely unaware that its foundation is being rewritten, one scratch at a time. This isn't a story about survival. It's about what happens when erasure meets something it cannot kill. Before we descend any further, I'd love to know. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It amazes me every single time that a story buried this deep can surface again, halfway across the world, through your screen. Now, let's go back to where it started. Because what the Ottomans did to these Christian nuns didn't begin in darkness. It began in daylight, with a bell that would never ring again. The year is 1470. The convent of St. Catherine sits like a crown of stone on the hills of Thessaly, overlooking valleys that have known peace for longer than anyone can remember. Inside, 23 women live lives measured not in years, but in psalms. Matins at dawn, vespers at dusk. The rhythm of their days is ancient, unbroken, sacred. Sister Eleni, the abbess, has tended this rhythm for 12 years. Before that, she tended the dying during the plague of 1448, holding hands as the world collapsed around her. She came to this convent not to hide from suffering, but to make meaning from it. Sister Magdalena is 19. Her hands still bear calluses from her father's farmland that belongs to someone else now, worked by people who don't remember her family's name. She took her vows 2 years ago, the day after she watched Ottoman raiders burn everything she had ever known. The convent is the first place she has slept without nightmares since. Sister Theodora is 70. She has outlived 2 abbesses, 1 empire, and more wars than she bothers to count. She stopped fearing death the day she realized it was inevitable. But what's coming for them now isn't death. It's something the Ottomans have perfected across decades of conquest, something far more calculated than massacre. Because dead women become martyrs. Martyrs inspire songs. Songs keep memory alive, and memory is the one thing an empire built on erasing borders cannot afford. The first cannonball doesn't kill anyone, it shatters the bell tower. The sound is biblical. Stone explodes into fragments. The iron bell, which has rung every morning for 140 years, splits mid-swing and falls like a severed limb into the courtyard where the sisters grow rosemary and thyme for healing. The same hands that planted those herbs now cover their ears, trembling as the roar of impact fades into a silence more terrible than the explosion itself. Sister Eleni doesn't run. She stands in the center of the chapel, raises the silver crucifix that has survived 3 generations of her family, and begins to sing, Kyrie eleison, Lord have mercy. Her voice cracks, but it doesn't stop. One by one, the others join her. 23 women, voices rising against the thunder of an empire that has already swallowed Constantinople, Serbia, the jewel cities of Anatolia. Their hymn is defiance. It is also goodbye. By midday, the gates are open, not broken opened. Because the Ottomans don't need to break what will surrender. The soldiers who enter the courtyard don't carry swords. They carry ledgers, quills, inkpots. They move through the convent like clerks conducting inventory, counting windows, measuring grain stores, cataloging assets, because that's what these women are now. Not souls, not enemies. Assets. A translator steps forward. Greek man, maybe 40, with eyes that can't quite meet theirs. His voice shakes as he reads from a scroll written in Ottoman script, and you can hear the shame buried in every syllable. By order of Sultan Mehmed II, all subjects of conquered territories must submit to the authority of the Sublime. Port. Those who convert will be granted protection and integration. Those who refuse will face consequences befitting rebellion. Sister Eleni steps forward. Her face is calm, almost serene. She speaks in Greek, slowly, so every soldier understands. Tell your Sultan we have already given our lives to a king. We have nothing left to offer him. The officer in charge, Hasan Pasha, whose name appears in Ottoman military ledgers from the 1470 Thessalian campaign, does not respond with anger. He smiles. It's a smile that understands something these women don't yet comprehend. The Ottomans have been doing this for decades. They know exactly how long faith lasts when you separate it from food, water, and hope. That night, the sisters are locked inside their own chapel. No bread, no water. Just stone walls and the sound of soldiers outside, laughing, eating, living, while they wait to see who breaks first. Two of the younger nuns begin to weep in the corner. Their sobs echo off vaulted ceilings that once carried hymns toward heaven. But Sister Magdalena, barely 20 years old, begins to whisper a psalm from memory. "The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want." Then another. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." One by one, the others join her. And slowly, impossibly, the weeping stops. This is the moment Hasan Pasha underestimated. These women have spent their entire lives preparing for suffering, fasting, vigils in winter cold. Hours of kneeling on stone floors. What the soldiers see as torture, the nuns recognize as Tuesday. But patience is also a weapon. On the second day, a servant enters with bread and water. Real food, clean water. He sets it down without a word and leaves. The nuns stare at it. Their lips are cracked, their stomachs hollow. The younger sisters look to Eleni, desperation written across their faces. Sister Theodora, the eldest, speaks first. They want us to take it, to feel gratitude, to soften. Eleni nods. Then we fast. They don't touch the food. By the third day, their hands tremble. Some can barely stand, but they don't break. Hasan Pasha watches from the courtyard, arms crossed, and for just a moment, something like respect flickers across his face. But respect doesn't change orders. On the fourth day, he enters the chapel himself. He speaks in Turkish, the translator following like a shadow. "You are not criminals. You are not enemies. You are simply mistaken. The Sultan is merciful. He offers you new lives, new names, protection under his law. All you must do is speak the words." Silence. Or Hasan continues, "You may come with us to Constantinople. There, the Sultan himself will hear your case. Perhaps your conviction will move him." He pauses, lets the word settle. But the road is long, and the weak do not survive it. It's not a threat, it's a promise. Sister Eleni looks at her sisters. Some are unconscious. Some are praying with their eyes closed. Some are staring at the floor, searching for strength in stone that has none left to give. She turns back to Hasan. "We will walk." The smile returns. "Good. We leave at dawn." That night, the nuns hold each other in the darkness. No one speaks. But Sister Magdalena begins to hum a hymn they sang at Vespers for years. One by one, the others join her. Outside, some of the soldiers pause. Some look away. One of them, years later, will tell his grandson about the women who sang themselves toward death. But that story, like so many others, will be forgotten. For now, the hymn rises through cracks in the chapel walls and drifts into the night. A prayer, a plea, a declaration, we are still here. They leave at dawn. 23 women, wrists bound with rope, walking south toward the coast. No carts. No horses. Just feet and dust, and a sun that shows no mercy. The soldiers don't rush them. They don't need to. The road itself is the punishment. By the second day, Sister Irene collapses. She's 62. Her knees have been failing for years. She tries to stand, but her legs won't hold. The soldiers don't wait. Sister Magdalena and another nun lift her between them and carry her for the next 3 miles. When they stop for the night, Irene is unconscious. By morning, she's gone. They bury her with their hands. No tools, no ceremony. Just dirt and whispered prayers. Hassan Pasha makes a note in his ledger. 22 remaining. On the 4th day, Sister Callista simply stops walking. She sits down in the middle of the road, closes her eyes, and doesn't get up. They leave her there. By the time they reach the Portavolos 7 days later, only 18 remain. But something happened on that road, something the Ottomans didn't anticipate. The nuns stopped weeping, stopped begging. They walked in silence, not the silence of defeat, the silence of women who had already made their choice. At the port, Hassan calls for Sister Eleni. She's brought to his tent alone. What happens next isn't in Ottoman records. It's in a letter from a Venetian merchant who witnessed the aftermath. A letter discovered in 2003 in the archives of Dubrovnik. He writes, "I saw them bring her back at dawn. She could not walk. Her eyes, God forgive me, her eyes were open, but she was not inside them anymore. They dressed her in silk and paraded her through the camp as a convert. But when I passed close, I heard her lips moving. She was still praying in Latin. Silently, she had not broken. They had simply taken her body and left her soul to wander." This is the Ottoman strategy history doesn't teach. They didn't want martyrs, they wanted ghosts. Women who would walk, talk, breathe, but never be whole again. Living proof that rebellion was futile. Living warnings. Sister Eleni walked with them the rest of the way. But she never spoke again, never looked anyone in the eye. The younger sisters wept when they saw her. The older ones just prayed harder. At Volos, they're loaded onto a gallia warship with rows of benches and chains bolted to wood. The nuns are shackled to iron rings. A manifest discovered in 1987 in Istanbul's Topkapi archives lists them not by name, but by function. Religious captives, female, 18. Destination, imperial household. Purpose, domestic service, and conversion. That word services, doing a lot of work. The voyage lasts 12 days. Storms lash the deck. Salt spray stings their cracked lips. The women who have never seen the ocean vomit until there's nothing left. At night, Sister Magdalena whispers psalms beneath her breath. Her voice is faint, nearly swallowed by waves. But the other prisoners, Greeks, Serbs, Italians chained beside them, turn their heads to listen. When the ship finally enters the Bosphorus, the sisters see Constantinople rise before them. Domes, minarets, walls that stretch forever. The city gleams like a blade. They're marched through narrow streets, past merchants, past soldiers, past slaves. People stop to stare. Christian nuns among the captives are unusual, even here. They're lead past gardens where fountains sing. And then, in the shadow of Hagia Sophia, the great church that is now a mosque, they're forced to kneel as the call to prayer echoes from its minarets. One of the sisters whispers, "We are home," but it is no longer ours. They're taken to Topkapi Palace, not to the grand halls, not to courtyards where ambassadors walk. They're taken beneath down stone steps that spiral into darkness, through tunnels that smell of damp and decay, to a place that doesn't officially exist. For months, maybe years, these women live beneath the palace, working as silent servants by day, scrubbing floors, washing linens, tending fires for rooms they'll never enter. But at night, when the palace sleeps, they gather in a forgotten chamber and pray. They have no priest, no altar, no Bible, just memory. They recite psalms from recall, verses half forgotten, reshaped into prayers that keep them alive. They sing hymns in whispers so faint the stone barely catches them. They hold communion with bread stolen from kitchens and water from palace wells. And they carve their faith into stone. one scratch at a time. In 2011, during restoration work, archaeologists broke through a false wall in the lower tunnels. What they found stopped them cold. Scratched into bedrock were crosses, dozens of them, small, crude, carved with fingernails or pottery shards. And beneath those crosses, etched in Latin, Lux in tenebris lucet, the light shines in the darkness. This was their chapel. Sister Magdalena's mark was their tua, small bird, scratched into the corner. Beside it, 23 lines, one for each sister, but only 11 were complete. The rest trailed off into nothing. They used broken pottery for candle holders, a scrap of linen for an altar cloth, a shard of mirror for a cross. In this secret chapel, they gathered each night and shared memories. Her village, her church bell, the warmth of bread before dawn. These memories became their psalms. A Venetian prisoner held for ransom in 1478 wrote of strange voices echoing beneath the harem, women singing in Latin to a god not of this empire. For centuries, historians dismissed it as superstition until they found the chapel. But here's what breaks you. The crosses stop. Halfway through the wall, the scratches become erratic. Desperate, the lines deepen as if carved with more force. Then nothing. Ottoman records from 1482 mention a cleansing of palace staff under the new sultan. Anyone deemed unproductive or resistant was removed. No details, no names, no burial sites. Just one line in a ledger, disposed. The nuns of St. Catherine vanished from history. 18 women who walked 7 days through hell, who crossed the sea in chains, who carved prayers into stone in absolute darkness. Gone, but their chapel remained. In 1712, a French diplomat wrote of a rumor among older servants that, on certain nights, if you stood in the lower halls, the air would grow cold. And if you listened closely, you could hear women singing in Latin. He dismissed it as superstition. But the walls don't lie. When archaeologists examined the chapel in 2011, they found traces of wax from Ottoman candles, from a different source, older, mixed with herbs, the kind of candles nuns made in convents. Which means they kept their vigil longer than anyone thought possible. Months, maybe years, carving crosses, whispering prayers, refusing to disappear. Sister Magdalena's bird was the last mark on the wall. Beside it, scratched so faintly it almost wasn't there. 2 words in Greek, we endure. The Ottoman Empire lasted 600 years. They conquered 3 continents. They rewrote maps, languages, entire cultures. They turned the greatest cathedral in Christendom into a mosque. They ruled from Vienna to the Arabian deserts. But they couldn't erase 18 women who scratched prayers into stone. Think about that. An empire with armies, cannons, endless resources against women with nothing but fingernails and faith. And the women won. Not in the way empires measure victory. They didn't reclaim their convent. They didn't convert their captors. They didn't live to see freedom. But they left a mark. History is written by victors. But memory is written by survivors. And sometimes survival looks like a cross carved where no one was supposed to see it. A prayer whispered in a language conquerors tried to silence. A bird scratched into stone to remember sisters who fell. Centuries later, we found it anyway. But you cannot conquer meaning. You cannot command the human soul to consent to silence. What survives is not the empire, but the witness. Not the decree, but the mark made by a trembling hand in stone. Those women understood that history is not written only by the powerful. It is written by the faithful, the stubborn, the unseen. Every carved cross was a refusal. Every prayer scratched into the wall was a declaration that their lives, however confined, still belonged to God and to truth. They did not know archaeologists would come. They did not know their chapel would be found, or their faith named Defiance centuries later. They only knew that darkness was not an argument, and suffering was not proof of defeat. So they kept vigil, they kept carving. They kept believing that light does not need permission to exist. And now, standing centuries later, we understand them backward. Their captors are footnotes. Their prison is rubble. But their message endures, intact and luminous. Lux in tenebris, lucet. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness, finally, did not overcome it. It waits patiently for anyone willing to look back and remember courage when hope seemed impossible. But you cannot kill what people carry inside them. And you cannot silence what they carve into stone. The nuns of St. Catherine were meant to disappear. That was the plan. Erase them, break them, turn them into ghosts or converts or footnotes. But they didn't disappear. They're still here, in those crosses. In that Latin phrase, in the chapel archaeologists found 5 centuries later. And now they're here with you, because you listened. Because you remembered. Because you refused to let their silence be the final word. Lux in tenebris, lucet. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.